Inside this room, all of my dreams become realities, and some of my realities become dreams.
What in the wide, wide world of sports is going on here? Alive! It's alive! It's alive!
You are listening to The Wilder Ride, getting wilder by the minute. Here are your hosts, Alan Sanders and Walt Murray.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Wilder Ride Listeners Lounge, a formatted show where instead of watching a movie 1 minute at a time, we talk to a person and get to know their life 1 moment at a time. I'm your host, Alan Sanders.
I am your co-host, Walt Murray.
And Walt, I can't believe how we are already done with the first quarter of the year. We're already into quarter two, and wow, I mean, I don't know about everybody else in the country, but March really lived up to its name. Came in like a lamb, left like a lion.
Yeah. And unfortunately for part of the country, it went ripping through like a tornado for some of us. But yeah, it's been a crazy month. I just can't believe we're already at spring. This year is just flying by.
Well, you know how you said we missed out on ice on a few episodes back? We never got that snowstorm. Well, here we are, you know, looking back, we were below freezing the first day of April. It was like April Fools, but it wasn't a joke. Mother Nature really meant I'm going to, all your plants you planted, all those little tiny shoots coming up, all that 80-degree weather, 30 degrees, come on.
Well, Alan, life finds a way.
Yeah, my wife found a way to have me out there with a staple gun and plastic protecting all of our plants. I'm like, what the hell?
Well, you know, you have to do that. And yeah, so I guess the first and second will actually be refreshingly cool for me.
Yep. Well, yeah, you know, as we're recording, it's coming into our future, but as we're looking back, it's in our rear view window. That's always weird about when we have a podcast that has just a little bit of lag from when it comes out.
Well, it's good because we can listen and remember the good times.
So what's been up for you this fine start of spring?
Oh man, you know, I've gotten out and cut grass a couple times, and I cut it over the weekend and had my first allergic reaction to all the pollen. So that was great. I looked like I had fought Rocky for 10 rounds and had that wonderful look of, you know, gummed up, closed eyes.
I don't understand what are you complaining about a pollen count near 7,000, seventh highest on record?
It's insane, isn't it? I mean, I knew when we didn't get ice that we were gonna have a rough spring. But
you know what's funny, and the thing that they always leave out of the conversation is the reason there's more pollen every year is because there's more plants, there's more trees, There's more blooms to bloom. So it's a good sign that, you know, Mother Nature, not only does it replenish its stores, but, you know, with our conservation techniques and everything we do, there's actually more green now than there was even 20 years ago.
Yeah, and we live in at one time, the greenest city in the country per capita, more trees than any other city in the United States. But one thing that I found interesting, a friend of mine posted an article this week that right now, there are something like 53 active volcanoes spewing ash into the atmosphere. And what that means to us is that we could have one of the shortest summers on record and one of the shortest growing seasons in decades.
It also means, which if you remember the after effects of major ones like Mount St. Helens, the years that followed, there's so much that stays in the atmosphere, you get longer, colder winters as a result as well.
So we could be in for a very strange fall and winter. So kind of looking forward to seeing how all that shakes out. I'm not a hot weather person. I'm too fat to be a hot weather person. And so I would go for a short summer. Of course, I do tend to lose weight in the summer. So it's kind of a...
Yeah, it's all water weight.
Yeah.
So you're sweating your balls off.
I'm trying. I'm working on it. I've kind of made some good changes. So
actually, you know, one of the things that the wife and I did, which I thought would be harder to do, and anybody who knows her, she's been on the podcast with us for episodes back in seasons 1 and 2, and then she joined us with some of our Patreon movie breakdowns. As a personal trainer, we just decided, I was raised always having some kind of a starch with every meal, whether it was a piece of bread, whether it was rice, whether it was a potato, whether it was baked, mashed, whatever. We've just stopped making the starch and just ate eat a little more vegetables. And so I'll just add an extra heaping of roasted broccoli or asparagus or, a fat corn on the cob, just trying to make sure that I'm eating more veggie and less starch. And you know what? She got mad at me because I just said, hey, since we stopped eating baked potatoes, I haven't done anything different. And I dropped like 3.5 pounds. And she got really mad at me and threw a shoe at me. And somehow that was a problem. I just was like, I'm just saying it works when you stop eating starch. She goes, well, it works for you.
Well,
Because I shouldn't say it that way because she might listen to this episode.
Her rage towards you is always just under the surface anyway.
Oh, yeah, so, nobody ever senses it.
So it was coming. It was just a matter of what the trigger was going to be.
Yeah, I thought she was going to be like, see? I was waiting for her to say, see, that's why you have to get rid of the breads and the starches. You don't eat as much of that. No, I got told how I hate you because you can lose it like that, and I've been trying for a month. I was like, well, you lost weight. She did. She was on a weight loss challenge with all of her friends. They all did this thing, which they do kind of this same time every year because boating and short weather and bikini weather is coming. And
that's what I'm worried about.
Your bikini weather?
My bikini weather.
Dude, we're going to continue to Zoom if you ever show up in a bikini. I will never be in the same room with you.
I'm worried that I will make people sick during bikini weather.
Well, yes, you don't even have to show up. Just the fact that you said that making me question a whole lot.
Well, see, I have a body that makes other people feel good about themselves.
Walt, the zombies are coming. Get behind me. I'll run first.
Yes, I would be a very healthy meal right now.
You're going to be Hodor. Hold the door. Hodor. We'll prop him up against the door. The zombies got no chance coming in here. Have you seen how scrawny they are?
That is the truth. I'm the guy who's like, if you need something knocked down, I'm really good for that.
You're like the human version of a bowling ball.
Exactly.
Hey, before we bring our guest on, which we haven't even mentioned his name just yet, I'll tease it in just a second. One of the things that I think is going to be cool about where we're going by the end of the interview is the return, I'm hoping, of car shows. And one of the things that I know felt weird because I'm not a huge car guy necessarily, but I appreciate the effort that goes into fixing up a car, chroming the engine or maybe restoring to factory, something a classic. And we didn't have any car shows all in 2020. And that was a mainstay for downtown for us. That was always something you could expect almost every Saturday. There was some club putting on a show and people coming downtown.
I am a car guy. And I was going through over the weekend and just in anticipation of Tom being on tonight, going through some of the groups that I'm on in Facebook that, these older, big, boxy American power cars. I love them.
Muscle cars.
And actually, oddly, my first car when I got my driver's license was the family 1977 Oldsmobile station wagon. But it had a 350 engine in it. So it would haul a lot of stuff and people, and it would do it fast. And we had a blast in that car. One time we had this huge box of eggs. And
this story may have popped up in a couple of episodes once upon a time.
Yeah. And probably on a couple of police blotters as well. And
I believe this was during Young Frankenstein, your egg story.
Yes, the Egg Fest. And there are a couple guys that probably still have bruises from that. But it was great. And then I had a 66 Mustang and I've had
that's cool
trucks. I've got an old, 93 Ford XLT right now that I love. And I'm trying to fix that up a little bit. Actually, that's what I was doing a lot yesterday, was working on an electrical goblin that was driving me bananas, but I think I figured it out because somebody hardwired a light into the electrical system, but didn't put a kill switch on it. So if you don't turn the truck on every few days, the battery goes dead. So
your nice little battery drain. Nice.
Undo that mechanical stupidity. But but I love old cars. So I'm really looking forward to our discussion tonight.
You know what? I should have assigned this as homework. So I know he's listening in the green room. So as we get ready to warm up the audience, I'm going to say at some point we all need to not only remember our first cars, but is there a car we wish we could afford? And if money were no object, is there the car you wish you could have? So we won't do it right off the bat because no one was prepared. So everyone can think about that for a moment, because what's more important is we go ahead and tell the audience to put their hands together, and let's welcome to our stage the one, the only, Tom Shinall. Tom, welcome to the Wilder Ride Listeners Lounge.
Yay! Oh, that's for me.
That's for you.
Yay!
Well, for folks who, and we're going to get to your beginnings and the look back, but we were sort of talking about vehicles for a reason, because you are the business development manager of a brand new museum that will be open later this year, God willing, the Savoy Automobile Museum. So tell us a little bit about what is the Savoy.
I will happily do so, and thanks to you, Alan and Walt, for having me on and the opportunity to be a part of the podcast this week. So Savoy Automobile Museum is the newest program of Georgia Museums. And Georgia Museums is kind of the parent organization. It's a 501c3 nonprofit organization. But we build and operate world-class museums. And those being Booth Western Art Museum, Telus Science Museum, and Bartow History Museum. Several years ago, the owners and foundation of our organization kind of came together and said, hey, we want to do another museum, and looking at what is part of the overall collection and scope, we have some automobiles that we think we could utilize to start a collection. And that's kind of where it got started. And so I transitioned over because I was originally part of the organization at Booth Western Art Museum, and transitioned over to be director of development for Savoy right at 3 years ago officially. And we've kind of been full steam ahead from that standpoint with plans, and there's a lot that goes into building a world-class museum, and the protocols, the planning, the information that you've got to do research on, the scope work of what has been done, what hasn't been done from the automotive museum side of things. So a lot of that took place in the first 2 years. And then late last year, or I guess early last year, we really started putting up some steel and getting some movement going vertical instead of just that horizontal dirt moving grading preparation of the museum site itself. So it's been an endeavor so far, but we are excited to be the next great museum that comes out of Georgia Museums, and to be a part of an organization that already is so well received and renowned worldwide. It kind of has a little bit to lead into as far as what we anticipate for ourselves, but something that we're really excited and proud to be a part of.
Well, Tom, I'm one of those weird people who will be driving through somewhere and I see a sign that says, whatever car museum, and I've got to stop and check it out. So I've seen like Bonnie and Clyde shot up car. I've seen, the Oscar Mayer Wienermobile. I've seen all these different car things. When y'all sat down and said, hey, we're going to have a car museum, what was it that y'all wanted to do differently than the Oscar Mayer Wienermobile or the other car museums that are out there?
Well, that's a really good question, because that kind of went into that process of the research and work of what are others doing, what are others not doing, what can we do differently. And that's really where I think we're going to be a unique player and play a unique role in the automotive museum world. And I say that because every automotive museum is unique unto itself in some form and fashion. And they're all great because they're all dedicated to preserving that automotive history, whether it be history of last week or history of 100 years ago. And so what we have set out to do is something a little bit different. And we looked at what the the general public perception, and it's a little standardized, but if you really think and sit back and think, okay, automotive museum, car museum, what most people envision is a steel building or a glorified garage or a renovated warehouse or an old automotive dealership, and something that's along the lines of kind of this semi-stagnant one collection aspect. Like there's this one family or this one person that has collected cars for 30 years, and here they all are parked side by side behind a road, kind of thing. Well, we looked at what we have done well at our other museums, Booth Western Art Museum, Telescience Museum, and realized that we have an opportunity with showcasing cars a little bit differently than most car museums. So what we're actually going to do is in reality, we have 4 spaces within our museum that will be dedicated gallery spaces. Of those 4 spaces, only one of them is going to house the Savoy collection. You know, we're going to take our cars, rotate them in and out periodically in that one gallery. And then traditionally what we'll then do is the rest of the galleries will be set up on a rotating schedule so that every 3, 4, 6 months, just kind of depending on the size, scope, scale, and theme of an exhibit, those galleries will rotate. So we will be rotating exhibitions in and out on a temporary basis, periodically annually, so that if you come to the museum, let's say on example, you come to our museum once a quarter, 4 times. Well, odds are there will be 3 to 4 different exhibits in a gallery, so that it's ever changing, it's ever rotating, it's not stagnant. And what's also great about that is that doesn't limit us. And when I mean limit us, I mean it in 2 different forms. One, it doesn't limit us to what our collection is, because like at the art museum, we've come really well at taking art on loan, whether it be for a Frederick Remington exhibit at the booth, or an Ansel Adams exhibit, or Andy Warhol. You know, you look back at some of the exhibits. Well, the museum doesn't own those. Those are exhibits that we take on loan or borrow those pieces and bring them in for a set exhibition.
Sure.
Same thing with automobiles. I mean, they're art unto themselves. So let's just say we wanted to do an exhibit on the Duesenberg. Well, that would take us to go out and find 2, 3, 4, 5, however many Duesenbergs we need to fit said exhibit, take them on loan from different organizations, other museums, other nonprofits, private collections, public collections, and we can put that exhibit together, we can curate it, and then we can showcase it during its runtime. And then at the end of the exhibit, everything goes back for their rightful owners. So that enables us to be able to showcase things that we don't necessarily own. And then on top of that, the other aspect that will kind of help the uniqueness there is that we aren't going to limit ourselves to any make, model, era, anything like that. So from the automotive standpoint, the way we look at it is the opportunity to connect people to the cultural diversity of the automobile. So it doesn't matter if it was, you know, brass era cars, pre-war, post-war, rat rod, the Tri-5s, current exotics. As long as we can tell a story about a car, then that car can be on display in our museum, is the way we look at it.
One of the cool things I think about this for me, and I think for a lot of people, is you really cannot tell the story of America and American history without talking about our vehicles. It's a big country. It was a new country, so we had to get across it. So going from horseback to wagons to trains to eventually cars and trucks, the automobile is really interesting because there is such a uniquely American aspect to automobiles. Mm-hmm. And then secondly, the history of the people who've used them is also amazing. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how y'all put those displays together and what comes of it. And I'm sure you've got all kinds of stuff in the works, from race cars to other stuff. But it's got to be fascinating to be putting these together.
It really is, and it's funny too, because we're still in the process too, where we're I mean, currently we're in the process of putting some stuff together for the hiring process of even a curator that will help put these shows together and things like that. And it's kind of a little bit of a nationwide search aspect. But with that, you're right about the importance that the automobile played in history. And I'm not going to limit it to just American history, but obviously with the Industrial Revolution. I mean, when you start really getting into the revitalization of what the modern automobile was even 100 years ago and where it's come to today, it's incredible. But we spent a lot of time really like getting down to the nuts and bolts of what our mission statement was. And I said it just in saying a couple of minutes ago and thinking about it, but the mission of our museum as a nonprofit, what we're wanting to do is we want to connect people to the cultural diversity of the automobile. And you really start thinking about that cultural diversity aspect, because that brings in the people. It brings in the connection points from, maybe a small town in Michigan that became the mecca for a certain automobile, all the way down to the importance of the interstate system that connected coast to coast and the opportunity for families to get out and drive and to experience the country. And then all the way up to where technology is playing the role in automobiles and what will the future hold, whether it be self-driving and the automated and the computer side of things. And there's so much to it that you can only imagine. There's more exhibit topics to come up with that we'll ever see in our lifetime, just from that opportunity. Yeah. And so it really is exciting to have almost that limitless opportunity to come up with a story, because every car has a story. And maybe we're telling the story of a group of cars or a brand of cars or a badge or a mascot or a certain technology or whatever it may be. Maybe it's even that of an individual or a person who has this collection and the role it played in their business or their life. And so it's that connection point to people and to cars, because, Alan kind of mentioned it coming into the podcast with me coming on, was, you start thinking about what was your first car, or what was a car that you went on a date in, or what did you drive off from your wedding in, or what. Everybody has a connection to a car. There is a story there for someone somewhere for a automobile. And that's what's exciting, especially from the other museums. Booth is obviously a world-class museum. It's an art museum. It's predominantly Western art. It's history. It's got a niche to it. The Science Museum in Tellus, it's family driven. It's a lot of that hands-on children aspect and that science and what matters and how things happen, which is great. But again, it's kind of got its demographics. When you really start looking at Savoy, our demographics are going to be very broad. It's going to be multi-generational. And there's a lot of excitement there, because people can relate and connect to an automobile or the story behind a car a lot easier sometimes than maybe a piece of art that hangs on the wall, or, some minerals or whatever it may be, the fossils, the aspect behind the other museums. We're excited to come to that table, because I almost feel like we've got an opportunity here that's a little bit more broad-based from that generational aspect. And it's been very well received so far, and we're not even open yet. So
You know, since you've been talking, there's been so many things that popped into my head. I'm trying to figure out what was the widest ranging question before I drill down too narrow. But let me ask this: because of the already the paved, or the road that's been paved, no pun intended, with TELUS and the booth, especially being Smithsonian affiliates, recently getting recognized nationwide for art and for science, has that made it maybe easier to open doorways for potential curated exhibits and some other folks wanting to lend you their vehicles in the future?
I think it will. We haven't necessarily got into the asking standpoint yet on automobiles for exhibits, but it is definitely one of those opportunities where it is kind of set the stage for us, really, to be successful, because it kind of goes into that aspect, Alan, where, you know, you've kind of had that foundation, you know, like you mentioned, the road has been paved, and we're coming in to an opportunity where when the booth was started, nobody knew what to expect.
Exactly.
There's this Western Art Museum coming to Cartersville. What? Okay. Then, you know, 9 years later, TELUS comes around, and there was a little bit more buzz behind it because, wow, the booth was such a great resource or such a great museum. We kind of know what to expect, that this could be a really great opportunity for the science museum. That's awesome. To all of a sudden, now people know what to expect. They know the world-class aspect. Like you mentioned, the Smithsonian affiliated with the other museums. Like, we're much more respected in the museum world. We're not just some small town museums. I mean, the best thing I've ever heard about our museums is our museums could be downtown in any metropolitan city across the world. I mean, Europe, America, our museums fit in any of those cities.
Well, if you think about it, just recently when USA Today, before the end of the last year, was doing their surveys of major art and major science museums, they were including some of the major museums in New York, in LA, in Chicago, in Florida. So it wasn't like, hey, these are the small museums. These were like the king of the crop. Yeah. And we won for art for the booth, and we're, I think, second for TELUS for Science Museum.
Yep.
So, I mean, we're on the map. There are people who make a point of coming to Georgia, to Cartersville, just to visit those two museums.
Absolutely. And that's why it makes it even more exciting from us, because we're just going to add to that. And again, it's adding a completely different aspect to it, because all of a sudden now you've got this opportunity, almost like a passport. When you come to Cartersville, Bartow County, there's this opportunity to go to these different places, spend the weekend, experience everything and that's just from the museum standpoint. That doesn't even get into the outdoor activities and the other resources that Cartersville, Bartow County has. But museums alone, I mean, we've got an opportunity to really showcase to the world what great resources we have. And that's kind of, you know, personally, from one of the folks that's been there from ground up, behind the vision, from napkin to actual still in the ground kind of a thing. It's kind of scary at times to sit and think, okay, what have we got ourselves into? But okay, we've got to deliver aspect. But we've done so well, and that's what we do, is we build museums and operate successful museums. I think that's kind of one of the things that we've dealt with from a perception wise, even in the Atlanta market, but even getting outside of that. But if you think about it from the metro Atlanta area, when we came into this, we learned that there's been rumors or discussions about an automotive museum in the Atlanta market for decades. It's never happened. Yeah. But there's always, that's just it. There's been talks about it, and they might get started, or a couple people might get together and think, okay, I'll put my collection here, you put your collection here. And we found a old dealership we're going to renovate, and then it just kind of fizzled. And, you know, we're obviously coming to it from a standpoint to where we kind of know what we're doing, because we've done it before. We've built museums. We operate museums. And even in a year that's kind of at the tail end of what was a pandemic, or what is the pandemic, but then a year where the museums were shut down for a while. And I mean, we've got peers in the automotive museum business that are planning on opening their doors on Thursday for the first time. You know, they're opening April 1st. again. I mean, they've been closed since last March,
Wow.
but they're opening April 1st. And so, like, we know there's a lot of museums out there that are still struggling, that will struggle for a while until things kind of get back going. But at the same time, I know several automotive museums in the past 2 years, we'll go back to 2019, but in the past 2 years that have closed. And that's kind of one of the things, that there are these museums that are closing. And then you've got a couple that are opening, but really you think about what Savoy is doing, being ground up, custom, unique, one of a kind, this world-class vision that's not just a still building that we're going to throw cars on display side by side aspect. I mean, we're building a museum that could honestly house anything in the world, and we're going to put cars in it.
Well, I think that's one of the interesting
and
aspects
so-
of this for me is that you're really, so many of these museums are in like Bob's shed, and they're not nice, and you go into them and you get dirty, and that's fine for me, but my daughters don't want to walk through and watch me brush dust and cobwebs off a car to check it out. Y'all are putting together a first class museum that happens to be displaying automobiles. You're not going to come in and walk through an oil spill. You're not going to have to clean your hands on an oily rag when you leave. This is a first-rate museum.
Absolutely. And that's, another thing that will kind of set us aside from most other car museums. Now, granted, there are some incredible world-class car museums out there that we one day hope to be kind of mentioned in the same likes of, like the Peterson out in LA, or the LeMay, or the America's Auto Museum up in Tacoma, Washington, or you've got the Gilmore in Michigan, you've got the Auburn Court Duesenberg. I mean, you've got all these museums that are incredible resources unto themselves, and they really are kind of that top tier world class. Well, that's what we're not coming in to this automotive museum industry just to kind of be run of the mill. That's not what we do. That's not our protocol. That's not what we've done with our other museums. Like, we're coming in ground up. Here's a vision. We're going to execute this. And it's kind of one of those things, like I was telling somebody the other day, like, we've got this world-class facility. Our collection, I'll be the first to tell you, our collection is incredible. It is very unique. It's diverse. It's eclectic. There's not necessarily a lot of cars that have, like, individually, that have some historical significance. Like, this car was was the first of this production line, or this car won this race, or whatever it is. There's not a lot of those individually, but there's great representations of the eras. Our oldest car dates back to 1903. And then right now, as part of our collection, I think the newest one we have is a 2006. So, you've got over 100 years just in our collection. And that's great because that provides a base. But from that is where we can kind of expand, and then we can bring in world-class cars, world-class exhibits, world-class events. And that kind of goes even into thinking back, like with the booth and Tellus, that first impression is everything. If you start really thinking about you think about an experience. When you go somewhere, you spend your hard-earned dollars to experience something. That first impression really does weigh heavily on your overall experience while you're there. You go into the booth, we watch it every day. When people would come into the booth, the first thing they do is their jaws drop to the floor, and they're just looking up, and they're trying to take in this facility that just blew them away. It exceeded every expectation when they walked through the doors, and they hadn't even seen the first piece of art yet. Like, it's just the facility itself was not what we anticipate. I can tell you right now, with the perception of what car museums are, you're going to pull onto our 35-acre campus, and we're going to have a signature look just from the aesthetic of the exterior of the building, that it's going to be impressive. It's going to blow you away. It's nothing that you're going to see anywhere else. It's unique unto itself. It is one of a kind vision aspect of an automotive museum that right off the bat, your expectations are going to be exceeded. And then it's going to be like, okay, well, just seeing the cars is going to be great because I'm already blown away. Like right when I walk through the door. So,
there's that old saying, you never get a second chance to make a good first impression. And I know you guys are going into it thinking that way. I had kind of a follow-up to the reputation question, talking about exhibits, and you said, well, that should naturally follow when you guys get toward reaching out. What about to the major car manufacturers themselves in terms of them wanting to say, hey, I want our newest Ford all-electric Mustang to be in that exhibit, or I want my Tesla model whatever in that exhibit? Have you had thoughts or conversations already about approaching the manufacturers to see if they want to use Savoy as sort of a hallmark showcase for their latest greatest?
There's actually several options that can play into opportunities there for us as a museum, and for manufacturers, groups, whatever it may be. So yes, there's ideas and thoughts and conversations happening about, the unveiling, the displaying of whatever it may be at the museum, hosting events for, an automatic manufacturer, whether it be an annual meeting, whether it be a national show or an annual show that leads up to an unveiling. So one of the other great things, and kind of what I am going to kind of consider a wow factor for Savoy, is we've got this presentation theater on one end of the museum that is really going to be something else. So I'll try to visually explain this to you the best I can. So imagine this cylinder of a room, almost, think about a presentation theater. Of course, high def, state of the art, theater style. So you've got the tiered seats. We're going to have 278 seats in our theater. With that, just as a reference, the booth seats 144, Tellus seats right at 200. So we're going to be upper tier of both of those, obviously. But then as you're looking down or looking in the museum or in the theater of the museum, you've got this stage. And the stage itself is substantial. And in the middle of it, there is an in-ground turntable. So you're going to have a digital screen, one screen that is like 35 by almost 20. Digital screen that
inches.
Yeah, inches. Yeah, feet. And so,
Alan,
with that, I guess we do need to make sure. Yeah, okay, car museum, 33-inch screen. Okay, that'd be a cool display.
Yeah, for the simpler minds like Alan, you have to explain those things.
Hey, guys,
33.
This feels too much like high school again.
I think the actual schematics are like 33 feet by 17 feet, to be exact. But anyway, it's large. It's going to be in charge. It's going to be that wow factor.
Awesome.
But there's going to be an access point to the stage from the side that obviously you won't be able to see, but you'll be able to drive cars in, bring them up on stage, put them on the turntable. They can rotate. You can move them around. If we're talking about a certain car, we're talking about the mechanics on the front wheelbase, and you want to turn the car to where you can focus in on that and you can see it and you can talk about it, then we can do that. Or if it's something that just needs to be turned in rotation, think auction opportunities, think unveiling opportunities, think display and historical opportunities from lecture series, programming. There are a lot of those opportunities that will be very appealing to a manufacturer from those type opportunities. And then even from the individual standpoint on a lecture program or a monthly programming note, to even the opportunity for fundraisers from auctions. Say there's a collection that is being liquidated and a family selling it. Well, they could bring in a Mecum or a Barrett Jackson or a Worldwide Auctioneers or whatever the auction house is, the Bonhams of the worlds, and we can just play host. And it could be a 3-day event where you auction off a couple of hundred cars in an aspect. Because a lot of that goes online at the same time and can be dealt with not necessarily on site, but then there's a lot that happens on site that still houses that. And we're going to be able to accommodate both ends of that. So that's exciting. And then, there's room in the museum and on the campus itself to where if a local dealership says, hey, I'm getting the first line of the new electric Hummers or the new electric Mustangs or the new Broncos or whatever the next new thing is, we want to display those. Well, that can be a partnership between the badge itself of the manufacturer all the way down to the local dealer to where, you walk into the entry hall of the museum and sitting right there front and center could be the 2023 model of whatever that automobile is. So,
well, and I think it's great that y'all are willing to have Alan and I come out and do a live podcast and drive some of those cars around. I think that's going to be a fantastic opportunity for our listeners to get an early view.
Think about how popular the carpool karaoke thing is. We can totally do something, right? We can totally do some podcasts, whatever it may be. So
now, to really represent our podcast, what we need is a smash-up derby course in the backyard, and the two of us running into each other, which is usually what our show consists of.
That would be fantastic. So.
One wreck after another.
Well, and see, that's the other fun thing too. And we haven't even got into the campus side of things. Like, we sit on 35 acres. Now, from a footprint standpoint, I can tell you right now, we've got 3 footprints for Savoy. We've got our main museum structure that's 70,000 square feet. We've got a vehicle storage building that's 35,000 square feet. And then we've got a outdoor pavilion that's going to be about the 20,000 square feet. In all, we're going to be similar to our other museums in that 120,000 square foot range. But that outdoor pavilion kind of becomes that central hub for activities. Because our grounds are going to get used a lot. And Alan kind of preluded to this with car shows, just them not really happening over the past year and the anticipation of them really revving back up and taking place again. We anticipate an event weekly of sense. And it might not be something that the museum is responsible for from an event, because we don't have the manpower to do an event every week. But that doesn't mean that we're going to have a couple of annual events that become our events, just like the other museums have, that are our signature events. But then that opens the door for, a car club to come in on a weekend, and maybe they're on this quadrant and showcasing maybe it's the Corvette Club of Atlanta. And then maybe on this end over here, you've got the British Motor Car Club is wanting to showcase their cars. And I get into that because there are different areas of the grounds for the museum that can be sectioned off where you could honestly host multiple car shows on one day, cruise-ins, swap meets, car clubs, whatever it may be. But then there's opportunity to also open it all up to have one big event. And when I say that, it's sometimes in the back of my mind, it's a little overwhelming to sit here and think about, because there's still so much that goes into the process of doing this. But we have had our grounds architecturally designed to showcase upwards of 1,000 cars. So we know for a fact we could fit 1,000 cars on our grounds, and that's not including
parking for people coming.
Well, no. And see, that's where you kind of get into the stuff we have to think about. Okay, well, one, that's where will attendees park? Where will people come? Well, okay, well, maybe we're going to park 500 attendees, but we're going to put 500 cars on display. But
okay, so it is 1,000. Okay.
Yeah, but then there's also the opportunity to say, okay, here's a car show of 1,000 cars. Well, we're going to shuttle people from across the street or the church property that's just right down the road. I mean, there there's plenty of room around us to even say that if we wanted to fill the grounds, and I'm not going to say we're going to want to do that to begin with, because there is that aspect of you want people to be able to come on site and attend an event. Because I've been to car shows that you have to be shuttled in on. Yeah, there's nuances there and things you have to deal with, but it just allows us the opportunity that if we ever grow to that point, we've got the space.
Well, and I was going to say, if you tell car guys that there's going to be 1,000 cars there, they will figure it out.
And that's exactly it. Like, we've had some great conversations with folks, like, specifically, like we've talked to folks with like the British, at the Atlanta British Motor Car Festival. We've talked to guys like the Atlanta Italian Festival, or Italian Day Motor Car Festival. We've talked to the folks with Caffeine and Octane. We've talked to the folks that operate the Atlanta Concourse d'Elegance. We've talked to, there are opportunities, and we don't know what all they will wind up being, because there are hundreds, and I say that because we've done the research, there are hundreds of car clubs just in the state of Georgia. And then you get into northeastern Alabama, or the Chattanooga market, or the North Carolina, South Carolina market. Like, at that point, you're looking at thousands of car clubs just within a 300-mile radius of the museum. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, there's no doubt that a Monday morning could come up and we get a phone call and it's the Model A Club saying, hey, we've got 30 cars that are going to drive up this weekend. Great. Well, then all of a sudden, we kind of go media blitz on, hey, this car club's going to be here this weekend. They're going to be on display on the grounds. Come enjoy these exhibits, enjoy this car club. And that's going to be an every weekend type occurrence. I have no doubt that we're leaning that way, because there's plenty of clubs and excitement and groups. And that doesn't even get into the groups that want to host a car club or a car show as a fundraiser for a nonprofit or for us or whatever it may be. So lots of opportunities.
Well, Tom, let me ask you, there are car guys everywhere. One of my friends, her husband is a big gearhead, and he lives in Iowa. I know some folks in Canada who are big gearheads. Are you going to offer any opportunities for them to be able to maybe virtually see some of these shows?
Yes, and there will be a virtual aspect to what we do as far as programming and exhibitions, because that's becoming the new norm. The booth, TELUS have done incredible jobs of shifting gears, pun intended, and being able to have that virtual experience in what was a year with the pandemic. And they did it extremely well. I can honestly say some of the things I've seen come out of the booth could arguably be probably some of the first virtual experiences I've seen at any museum across the country. It's incredible some of the things I've come up with, been able to do. Well, that is the new normal. There's going to be that virtual experience opportunity for a certain demographic or for a certain event, and we're going to have to be able to do that. If we didn't do that, we would just be kicking ourselves, for not doing that. So what all that entails is still being developed, still being kind of thought through the process with our MIS department, and what are all those opportunities. But there's no doubt that will have to be a part of what we do as well.
Well, and there's nothing really that can replace standing in the room and looking at a 1934 Ford.
Right.
When you're standing in the room with that vehicle, you are looking at history, you're looking at an awesome piece. But
right,
when you are precluded from being able to be there from time or distance or whatever, that is a great opportunity as well.
And it certainly is. And I look at that even as an opportunity for the folks that are watching, across the country for an event or an exhibit or whatever it may be. That's just an encouragement factor for them to say, hey, I still want to get there, because nothing does replace that in-person experience. And, I can say this too, the car culture, the family aspect of what the car world is, if you're a gearhead or if you're just a car culture guy or gal, if you're a family, I mean, there are so many couples that just enjoy getting in their 55 Bel Air and driving 600 miles to go to one event for the weekend, because that's just part of the experience. And, you start getting into like the cruises and the tours or whatever it may be. We're going to wind up being stops on those tours. We're going to wind up hosting those kind of tours and those cruise events. We're in a great spot to be a hub and spoke kind of a place where we could kind of be home base. Today you get out and you go to Birmingham and go to the Barber Museum. You get out today, you drive to Nashville and you're going to go to the Lane Museum. You're going to come back, you're going to go to Charlotte for a couple of days. Like, there's a hub and spoke aspect even to where we're located to partner with other museums and provide opportunities and bring people in from outside the Southeast, across the country for a week-long event.
Well, in all honesty, the location in and of itself is what, maybe 4 miles from the interstate that runs from Miami to Detroit?
2.
Yeah,
2
I was
miles.
gonna say it's
right. Not even. So we're 35 acres. We're 2 miles off I-75, exit 290. We are at the corner of historic highways, US 411 and Georgia 20.
Yeah. It's going to become Museum Row.
You're right across from Tractor Supply.
That's across from Tractor Supply from a
well, there you go, Walt. That's the selling feature.
and Alan, you bring up a good point. The booth is on exit 288, Main Street exit, couple of miles off. Savoy's going to be exit 290, couple of miles off. Tellus is exit 293, right on the interstate. You put us on 411. Savoy is 3 miles from both. So where we're located, you can head south 3 miles into downtown Carsville. There's the booth. You can head north 3 miles. Tellus. So all 3 museums are right there within 6 miles, 3 mile stretch from Savoy either way, from that standpoint. And then, speaking of the grounds and kind of, let me dive in real quick and tell you guys kind of a cool little backstory. So we kind of get the question pretty often too, like, where'd the name come from? Why Savoy? Like, what was the process behind this? And it kind of actually deals with where we're located and the land that we purchased to be a part of this for this project. So
I'm so glad you're going to tell this story, because I totally forgot to ask it.
It's fascinating, and I'll even give you a little bit more of the insight behind it too, because there's a couple things that just you just can't argue with fate sometimes. Like, so we decided we were going to build this museum. The land had been purchased. And one thing that we've done historically within our organization is we have always allowed our employees the opportunity to name, kind of have a little internal contest to name the new museum or the new building or the new wing, whatever it may be. And so same thing happened here. They announced we're going to build this automotive museum. All the employees in the organization had opportunity to submit names, and we were going through that process, and we had some final names selected that were part of that. And that's when you start that research process. Okay, you Google a name, you figure out what it leads to, is there trademarks, are there, registration, what all goes into naming,
oh, heck, is the internet name even available? The URL?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. I was about to say, is the website even available? And then you get into all the other naming things that could be associated with said name of URLs. So anyway, we were doing that research. As we were doing that, that's when the process of grading the land happened. And that land was a heavily wooded area. There was an old homestead on it. There was a couple of old dilapidated buildings, things like that. So anyway, we started
old radio station,
an old crappy radio station no one cared about.
Yeah, former radio station. So we started clearing from the outside in. And I'm telling you, when I say we got close to dead center of the 35 acres, I mean, we were within 100 yards radius, dead center. Like, we were there. And on this old homestead, there was a garage. And when we started pulling things away, behind that garage happened to be a car. Usually in this situation, when you uncover something like this, you got 35 acres, you uncover a car, usually you don't just uncover one car. Usually there's 2, 3, 4, or a part of a car here, a part of a car there. That's just typically the way it goes. But anyway, there was one car, halfway buried in the ground, trees growing through it. It rusted out, but still intact. Well, it happened to be a 1954 Plymouth Savoy. So all of a sudden, it was like, wow, we've cleared this land, and there's this car halfway buried that we're literally about to turn this into a automotive museum site. You know, there's that first omen of, you've got one car, it's going to be a car museum. Like, how cool is this? That, you know, it's not like we were building something else, and there's at least what we found related to what we were doing. Well, then it got talking and things like that, and somebody said something about Savoy, and then all of a sudden we just randomly started researching Savoy. And yeah, there was the classic, the song from like the 20s, you know, Stomping at the Savoy. And then I believe there's like a bar or a London hotel bar called the Savoy. Obviously, Plymouth had the Savoy brand. But nothing was locked in. Everything was open. Everything was available. And it really just started to fit. And it was like, okay, Savoy Automobile Museum. And after that, I mean, it was just, again, goes back to that, okay, you can't argue with this kind of this opportunity. But then from an internal standpoint, I'm going to kind of give you a little bit of the inside too. It really went to a whole nother level when we started thinking about how our museum group started. Booth Western Art Museum was the first museum that we built, that we started with. And, you know, our founders are an incredible group of folks, incredible family that prefer to remain anonymous, still to this day. And, you know, what better way to remain anonymous and kind of stay out of the light than to name this new museum after someone else. And so what they did is they decided for Booth Western Art Museum, the Booth's namesake was a business mentor and family friend to our founders, Sam Booth. And if you were to go into the museum, there's a portrait of Sam Booth in there. It tells his, you know, why that portrait's there, his importance and the connection to the family, and why the Booth was named after him, and all this, you know, opportunity. So anyway, so you've got Booth Western Art Museum named after Sam, and then all of a sudden it just clicks. I mean, it's a light bulb for us. Savoy Automobile Museum, SAM, Sam. So you've got Sam Booth. The last name Booth is Booth Western Art Museum. You take our acronym, and all of a sudden you've got Sam's first name. And then at that point, it was just like, oh, yep, wipe our hands. We're good. That's what it is. And we never even looked back. I mean, the other things that were being considered, didn't happen. So the fun part behind all that is we still have the 54 Plymouth Savoy. We dug it out of the ground. We had to cut down the trees that were growing through it. You know, we pulled it out. We excavated it. We've got it sitting at our corporate office right now. You know, we're not going to restore that car by any means. It's beyond restoration. But what we are going to do is we're going to return it to its home. We're going to clean it up. We're going to give it some good clear coat, you know, take all the sharp, rusted edges and points off. You know, we're going to adhere, make sure the pieces that are still there, that are quality, are still there. We're going to return it to the ground. We're going to plant a tree in it, and we are going to tell that car's story, because that's what we do. And it will be a great testament to the land our campus, our property, our site, to the museum, to the vision behind it, and then the omen of this is part of the reason why Savoy Automobile Museum is what it is.
You have, as I expected you would, taken the ball and run with it. I don't know if Walt and I have more than 5 minutes of conversation after we introduced you, which is exactly what we want with this show.
Yeah, I'm known to do that.
Well, before we can move on, I do want to go a little bit about you because you are our guest and you've spent a lot of time talking about, well, where you work, where you've been seeing, like you said, from napkin to concept, concrete plowing. It is nearly there. The runway, you're almost at the end. We're going to either land this plane or it's crashing. We are there.
Oh, it ain't crashing. It's landing, buddy. It's landing.
My question is, we want to get just a little bit of background on you. Let's talk about the Tom Shinall, because you were not
the real one.
You were not thinking when you left high school, I'm going to be a business development manager of a world-class automobile museum. So where were you, high school heading into college? What was Tom Shinall thinking was in his future?
I was going to be a broadcaster. That was my full plan when I was in high school. I did a lot of play-by-play. I did a lot of the public address announcing for sporting events. I can tell you I've called, at least from a public address standpoint, every sport there was at the high school. Wrestling matches, soccer, track and field, baseball, softball, football, basketball. I did it all. I did every sport. And when I got out of high school, my full intentions were broadcast journalism. I went to Cass High School, graduated in 2002, took off to Atlanta to go to Georgia State. What better place to look for opportunities for broadcasting than in the big city aspect, in Atlanta market itself. And so I did that and went to school for broadcast journalism. Personal things happened. I lost my dad to cancer when I was 18, shortly after I graduated. So I wasn't in Atlanta too terribly long. And then I came home and looked for something a little bit more convenient where I could still help around, the family home and the farm and what we were doing and be around for family and things like that. So I kind of shifted a little bit and went to Kennesaw State, which is where I wound up getting my degree from. But even then, that's right.
Hey, I graduated from there before you,
and so did I. Before
we're
both
all
of you.
alums here.
There we go. But it kind of shifted too from that standpoint, Alan, because when I was in high school, I was doing a lot of sports broadcasting, public address announcing. But that even led into another career that I never just anticipated being a career. And that was music and entertainment from a DJ perspective. And when I was in high school, by the time I became a senior, I was being asked to be a part of like school dances at the middle school or in the elementary schools that fed into the high school. I knew what could and couldn't be played on school campuses because of everything I had to sit through for regulations in broadcasting, but then also knew how to handle a mic. And then there was this public figure of kids that were in the elementary and middle schools leading up. And all of a sudden there's a senior being a part of your event. And so it was this really cool program I got to be a part of. And so we started DJing these dances for feeder schools. And as soon as we graduated, and it was me and a buddy that did it, as soon as we graduated high school, that kind of kept happening. They kept asking us to do broadcasting. They kept asking us to do dances. A friend that we went to school with was getting married. We DJ my wedding. And so that just, boom, just started. Just kind of fell into our lap aspect. So our we graduated in 2002. From 2002 to 2003, that very first year, we DJ'd a total of 12 events. Woohoo! One event a month was our average where we started. Fast forward, that was 2002, so it's 2021 now. But in 2012, we were named Small Business of the Year for our local Cartersville, Bartow County community. And that company is still thriving today. We do upwards of about 300 weddings a year now.
Wow.
We do photo booth services, and we've got photography and videography and things like that can kind of be packaged and tied into things. But our main focus is still that of being a DJ and providing a service. And so anyway, that led into being a business major at Kennesaw. And then I struggled with certain aspects, just weren't my forte. And all of a sudden I was like, man, I don't have to take accounting if I do communication. So I went into communication and, then got into public relations side of things. And so obviously all that fit with what I was doing as a job or what I was turning into a career with the DJ business. All that fit. So it made sense because I could connect what I was learning in the classroom to what I was doing in the field. And then when I graduated, the DJ business continued, things continued to do well. But it was much more of just a weekend job. We were doing events on Friday nights, Saturdays, and Sundays. And during the week, it wasn't enough to, by no means, to start a family, but it was also something that paid my way through college. It built up what I was doing. It gave me experience. And it got to a point to where, even personally, like DJing to me was getting beyond what I was comfortable doing. I was getting to the point where I've got guys that do this better than I do. So step back, kind of run the inside of it and let other people get out there and do it even better. And so that's where I stepped back a little bit. And that enabled me to even dabble in other opportunities. Like I did national sales at one point right out of college. I went and worked for a local children's nonprofit, worked for Advocates for Children in Cartersville, our children's shelter, things like that, did special events for them. And then even that ultimately led to an opportunity within the broadcasting field to where we started doing contract work for WBHF. And we were doing football games on Friday nights. And we had the post-game pigskin party. And we were filling in. We were doing analyst opportunities, pre-game, post-game, halftime shows, which we're all familiar with. And from that standpoint, it's where I filled in for the opportunity for Bartow's Morning News when that opportunity became available and helped out for, what, Alan, 6 months?
About 6 months, yeah.
Before the booth opened the opportunity for director of marketing. And it was kind of one of those things where I really didn't think I would get the director of marketing position at Booth. Yes, I had some experience running my own business. I didn't have a marketing degree. Communication PR definitely worked. But I knew there'd be more people out there more qualified than I was.
Well,
no doubt.
This is where I'm gonna pump you up a little bit. Being involved in marketing, as far as something like the museum, requires personality, requires someone who's going to get in front of people. You're going to have the dynamic ability to speak well, to speak off the cuff, to not have to look at notes, to be comfortable in multiple different situations. Everything that you had done up to that point made you more than qualified to be a marketing director.
Well, thank you. And I completely agree with what you just said, because that is a big part of it. And it comes to find out, in talking with Seth Hopkins, the executive director of the museum who hired me, come to find out after I had been hired for a little while, we talked. Yeah, I wasn't the most qualified, but I was the most enthusiastic. And I was the one that wanted it more than anybody else. And I think that even says a lot and goes a long way in the realm of wanting to do a good job and be successful at what you're doing, is that mindset of, I want this and I want to succeed and I want this place to succeed. So I was at the booth for right at 6 years when the announcement came about Savoy, and then that opportunity and going from director of marketing to director of development was a step up from a career standpoint, and it was a new experience, and a lot of that blends together as well. So it gave me a great opportunity to kind of grow in my knowledge base and really the opportunity to be a part of something ground up. Because being at booth was really special, and you'll be the first one to say it too, Alan. I fully embraced that persona and that opportunity to get to play cowboy every day.
Oh yeah,
I mean, it was incredible.
how cool was that? What do you wear to work? Hat, boots, shirt, spurs.
Yeah. Well, and what's great about that, minus the spurs, I get to still wear the same thing. I mean, I still get to wear my boots. I still get to wear a hat. It's not necessarily the full brim cowboy hat now, but I've kind of got that Tallahassee style palm leaf Stetson, and I still rock. And so, it's still part of it, but it's great to be able to be a part of something ground up. And for me personally, Cartersville, Bartow County is home. It's been home for my family for, as a matter of fact, like my children are 7th generation Shinalls in this community. So I'm proud of our community. I'm proud of what we offer and the resources we have. And to be a part of an organization that puts so much back and gives so much into my home community is special. And so it really kind of doesn't even matter what the position is. Like, yeah, when I graduated, there wasn't even a museum. It wasn't even open yet. But to be a part of something that I never saw coming to this extent, it's special. And it's special on a lot of different levels. I'm honored. I'm humbled by a lot of it, but I'm proud in a lot of it too, to be able to be a part of something so great for so many. So it's been quite a journey, and oddly enough, to be as far into it as we are, I feel like it's just getting started. So
well, technically it is. I mean, you've been watching the baby grow, but the baby hadn't taken its first step yet.
Yeah. That's for sure. So
well, as we're rapidly running out of time in our interview piece, and we're going to go a little long, which is fine because we really wanted to showcase the Savoy, because to me, living in the same community, and I know Walt who lives not too outside of the Cartersville Bartow area, was so interested when he heard you on the air with me talking about Savoy. We kind of always wind down with these kinds of questions. First and foremost, the Tom Shinall, where do you see yourself, maybe 5 years from now? The museum launches this fall. It starts to bring in the car clubs. We get back to a sense of normalcy. Where are you 5 years from now?
Oh, man. 5 years from now, I could see it being a lot of fun. I fully intend and expect to still be in a leadership position with the museum. And at that point, I see us being a little bit more established even to an opportunity to do some more fun opportunities. Because we're going to start off, not necessarily simple, but we're going to start off with the basic opportunity to showcase, the art of the car. But there are so many things you're going to get into with automobiles and the history, and whether you start diving into motorcycles and trucks and transportation and farming. And there's a lot of things that can tie into automobiles. And within those first 5 years, I see us starting to reach some of those boundaries and really being able to expound on opportunities. And who knows what the future holds for the museum. Personally, I could fully see an opportunity a couple of years to do a campaign to where all of a sudden, hey, we've got this back quadrant where we want to build a restoration site, almost a living exhibit opportunity. Like you can come in, when you go to Tellus, you can buy an additional ticket that gets you into the planetarium. Well, could you imagine coming to an automotive museum where you can get a tickets package that includes an opportunity to go in and sit and watch a crew restore a car?
Oh my God, that would be so cool.
And maybe even you have a docent or someone there that's almost leading that play-by-play. Like you've got Joey, he's on he's got the fender well, and he's over there on the dry bag, and he's using the roller machine to pound out that fender and get it to the right shape. And then you've got this guy over. So there's opportunities that we see as, well, just that, an opportunity. Will it ever happen? We really don't know.
Well, when you do that, I've got a pickup truck that is dying to be restored.
Yeah, exactly.
That is standing in line to volunteer.
and then you even start thinking about the opportunities of stuff like partnering with a local school or an automotive shop or whatever it may be to start instilling some of that. So there's a lot of things that aren't going to happen immediately for the museum, because it will just take time to build those programs and things like that. So within 5 years, man, we're going to be well into some of those opportunities. We're going to be well into some of those protocols and building those type chances to just further what the museum is. And I look forward to being in a leadership position to be able to take this museum to that level. So, I can tell you right now, I'm going to be in Cartersville and I'm going to be in Bartow County because this is home. I'm not going anywhere.
This is the happening place, I'm telling you. All right. I said at the beginning that I wanted to give everybody a little homework. I know I didn't do it ahead of time, so everybody's had a few minutes to think about it, I hope. I want to do, and I'm going to throw in a wrench at the last second. I'm going to have 3 car questions. The first car question is, just for reminiscence sake, does everyone remember the very first car they ever had and drove? And I'm going to go to Walt first. What was your first 16-year-old, fresh license in hand? What was the beater you drove?
Oh, man, mine was classic. I had a 1978 Oldsmobile Cutlass Classic station wagon. Powder blue. It actually had cruise control that didn't work, AM radio, and it was awesome. I mean, I don't even ever remember changing the oil in that dadgum thing, and it was awesome. But I delivered pizza in it. It was just great. And bench seats and fold down back. I mean, that car was just, it kicked ass.
Awesome.
Hey, we've got a 67 Oldsmobile Vista Cruiser in the collection.
Oh, I got to come see that.
No,
all right. Tom, you're just a hair younger than us, but what was your first car? Do you remember the first thing that you could say, this is my car, I'm driving?
My first car was a 1980 Mercedes-Benz 300 coupe diesel. So I had
look at you, the Mercedes-Benz.
Man, I'm telling you, as a high schooler with a Mercedes was cool, but then it was a diesel, so it didn't get up and go by any means.
No, it had all that black smoke.
and then I had the friends that would come over to the house, and it might be the winter, and all of a sudden they look at me and like, your car is plugged into an electrical outlet. And because that's what you did with the older diesels, you could plug them in so the engine would stay warm and not seize up. And
right,
yeah, I drove a car that you had to charge. Now back then that
warm.
Was weird, but look at it now. Who's the joke on now? Yeah,
right.
Everybody plugs a lot of cars in. But yeah, a 1980 coupe diesel, the 300 CD, little 2-door sunroof. It was this gray color with blue leather interior.
Did you have a name for it?
Bubba.
Mine was the Dragon Wagon.
Mine was Bubba.
Dragon Wagon.
Bubba Benz. That's
mine. So funny. Okay, so my first car was affectionately nicknamed the Green Machine. It was a 1978 Oldsmobile Cutlass Supreme Brougham, the vinyl top, the spoke chrome wheels, it was a 4-door with tan cloth interior. It was a piece of shit, but it was mine. And I would wash that sucker and I would wax it, and it had chrome front and rear bumpers. Like I could probably put that in a smash up derby if it was driving still today. Yeah. It was a tank. It had a crappy little engine, couldn't drive fast at all, but I didn't care. It was my ride to paradise. And I loved just the fact that I had freedom.
And I bet it's safe to say for all 3 of us, we all still wish we had those cars.
Oh, no doubt. I've looked online before just looking at prices and just thinking.
I've done the same thing looking for the car I had. Yes.
I would just love to drive that same car because I guarantee I would suddenly be 16 again.
Yeah.
Thinking about, I'm driving to high school for the first time. I'm not riding the bus. My mom's not dropping me off. I'm responsible for me. That was the coolest feeling in the world.
And that's what's so exciting about what Savoy's going to do, because people are going to go back to when they were 16 or whatever the memory is when they come in and see their car.
Yeah. All right, next question.
That's great.
Okay.
I said that's our first car. So that was where we had no money. We had POSs. We didn't care. It was freedom. It was the first time. Now we're older. We're more sophisticated. If money were no object, what is your dream vehicle? Walt, I'm going to go to you first. I gave you time to think about it at the beginning. What would be your dream? Now, it could change tomorrow, but right now, what's your dream vehicle?
I got to be honest. I'm pretty simple. I would, if
now money no object. I mean, I would love a Tesla. Like, that's me right now, but that's not my money no object car. My money no object car, I'm going to have to make a few $1 million a year.
Yeah, I would still flip a coin between the new Ford Ranger and the new Ford Bronco.
Really?
Really?
That's your dream car?
I'm a
Everything.
pretty simple guy.
I know that. I've had
I
you
like
in my
pickup trucks. I mean, I love pickup trucks.
Oh, I love trucks.
And so I had a Ford Ranger forever that I still wish I hadn't sold. So I mean, for me, you know, those are just two great American vehicles, and the pickup truck. I mean, you can just haul crap around in it and look down on people, and you know, that's pretty easy.
All right, you're not playing along like I was hoping, but
No,
I appreciate that.
A Maserati, Alan. Are you happy?
Okay, Tom, I'm going to go to you next. What would be money were no object?
I've got a real hard, because I am on two ends of the spectrum here. I've got two options that I would have to think long and hard about. One would be I have this fascination for Cadillacs. I love old Cadillacs.
Oh yeah.
But there's part of me that maybe it's because I saw one for the first time ever about 3 years ago, and I've just been infatuated with them ever since. But the early 1930s, Cadillac made a V16. And it was just this luxurious monster of a car.
I was going to say it was like an aircraft carrier.
I think that was trying to compete with Rolls Royce at the time.
It was, exactly. It was a car that was competing with the Rolls Royce and the Packard of the era, it was just a fascinating. I'm a big guy, so I've always said if I had something, I would want it to fit my stature. That car and I'm telling you, like, you see those cars at auction now, I mean, they're $1 million plus just because they're rare. You don't see V16 Cadillacs. So it would be between that, and the other one would be a little bit more of a resto mod custom, because they didn't make what I would want. But I have this fascination with going back to, like Walt was talking about with the trucks, like the late 1940s and the 1950s era Dodge Power Wagons, like the cars that were made for the farms out west, like just work trucks.
Beasts.
I love those beastly trucks. My thing is, even in my mindset with a family, like, I want something I can put my family in, we can run to town in or go to a car show. So I would want one of those custom, like, extended cab, 4-door crew cab type Power Wagons.
And the kind you turn it on and it scares the neighbors.
Oh man, and yet again, something that would fit my stature. So it would be between the two of those. Money no object. Yeah, I'd probably say the Cadillac, just because that's going to cost a lot more.
That's a beautiful car.
Well, for me, I'm going to go the opposite direction to ultra techno modern. I thought it was cool when it was first released, and then when they used it in the Doc Strange movie as Dr. Stephen Vincent Strange's vehicle, the Lamborghini Huracan LP6104 is a gorgeous, unbelievable technological advance in automobile. You look at that car, it's like a rocket ship on 4 wheels.
The lines on that car are really beautiful.
It is gorgeous.
A work of art unto itself.
Yeah.
And then you start getting into the technological side.
Yes. That thing. It's top to bottom, soup to nuts. It is my all-time still right now favorite. If I could get any car just to have it, that would be it. Only because it's sleek, it's cool. I've always liked Lamborghinis, but that particular model is just, for me, that's Who Let the Dogs Out, off the chain, awesome. I would sit in it. I wouldn't even drive. I just sit in my car. I'm sitting in it, looking at it,
And
just
see, that's
smelling
one of those
it.
cars, like, it would be so cool for me, but I wouldn't fit well in it. I couldn't go with that one.
Right. Well, and because we're empty nesters, I'm not thinking about the family wagon. I'm not thinking about 4-doors. I'm finally could go back. I've never, since I got rid of my Firebird, which was my second car, I've always had a 4-door. And it'd be fun to go back to that 2-door sports car, just me and the wife. I just take it, pay for it to be brought over to Italy, and we're just going to spend 3 weeks just touring the countryside. I mean, that would be awesome.
Well, if money's no option, just go to Italy and do it.
Right, there you go. All right, so the one I didn't give you the heads up on, this is a last second. Let's look at Hollywood movie cars. The cars that were made famous in a movie. Was there any car that you wish you could have that was a character or a feature in a film? Walt, gotta go to you. Because I know mine, it's without a doubt. It's I'll go first. I'll go first this one, give you guys time to think. I've got to go with Mad Max's Road Warrior. That car is, to me, I mean, when I first saw Road Warrior, I was blown away. And to this day, if I could get somebody to soup up that car the way it was made in that movie, that Pursuit Special, that GT Falcon V8 Interceptor, I mean, you could drive that right now. I would love just to hear it, just the pipes, just the blah, 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 and then have the blower on top and just ready to go into action. To me, there is no better vehicle that represents everything about the movies I love, the kind of books I like, the kind of stories I like, the kind of characters I like. Mad Max's just Interceptor, that's the car I want.
Yeah, mine's an easy one. If I had $240,000 right now, I would own the 1977 Pontiac Firebird that was used in Smokey and the Bandit.
There's a good car. The T-top model, man, with the big Firebird on the front hood. Oh, that's a great car.
And just powerful and fast and
you got to get the
awesome.
V8. Just nothing but leather and fire and yeah, it's just awesome.
That's a car.
Oh yeah, and it's a car from our childhood and our memories.
Yeah, and I had to look up how much it was going for. The last auction was $240,000. So.
Wow. All right, Tom, we're going to wrap up the car talk with this one for you. If there was a Hollywood car, something that you remember maybe growing up watching, some iconic car, is there one? And you may not have one, but is there one for you?
Oh man, this one's tough. I would say the car that I think about more from a movie standpoint not even from a movie, actually. Mine actually comes from television, just from the entertainment.
Oh, that's fine.
Magnum PI. I'm going.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is about the supercar of the late 80s, into the 90s, just the brown leather interior, the red, maybe it was the Tom Selleck and the Hawaiian shirts. I don't know, but I'd ride around it. I'm not gonna lie.
That 308 Ferrari, I mean, that model was considered one of the most popular versions thanks to that television show.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know. I mean, I'm sitting here thinking about all the movies I've ever seen. There are so many, but I just go back to that one for some reason.
There's nothing at all wrong with Magnum's Ferrari. That was a cool car.
Maybe it's because I wear Hawaiian shirts like all the time. Like that was just my style. Like in middle school, that was Hawaiian shirts. Yeah, maybe I just want to live vicariously like that.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, Tom, before, because I know you may have to drop, we invite all of our guests to hang out with us during our movie review, during our news, and during our entertainment. But in case you have to go, and if you do, just chime in and say, sorry, guys, got to leave. Where can people learn more about the Savoy Automobile Museum? I'm sure there's already some social media underway. There's got to be a website underway. Where can people stay in touch with what's happening?
Absolutely. So SavoyMuseum.org is where you can find us directly online. And it's a basic shell of a website so far because there's a lot of information that's still being developed. And as it's developed, it's going to be added. So always can find information on savoymuseum.org. And then you can find us on social media, primarily Facebook and Instagram to start with, kind of getting our footing first with those platforms. We post, if you want to follow along with construction in progress, that's where you can do that because we're posting something new every day. We started back January 1st because 2021 is our year. Late fall 2021, we're going to be opening. So we said we're going to come out and keep people up to date with what's happening. And so we're doing that on a daily aspect on Instagram and Facebook. We'll add more social media platforms as we continue to move forward. But right now, SavoyMuseum.org, Facebook, Instagram, Savoy Auto Museum is where you can find us there.
Excellent. Tom, it has been such a pleasure to spend so much time talking about what we believe will be the third world-class museum of that kind of scope and size to come to Cartersville, Bartow County in northwest Georgia, just a few miles north of Atlanta. Already on the map with the Telus and booth from all of the publicity we've gotten last year. I don't doubt we're going to have a lot of folks driving from all over to come visit this museum when it goes live.
Honor, pleasure. Thank you guys both, Walt, Alan. Appreciate being a part of this. And hey, let me know. I'll do it again sometime. Give you another update as we get closer.
Awesome. Sounds like a plan. All right. Well, if we want, like I said, you can hang out and then chime in. Otherwise, just let us know when you want to drop. We've got to get to our movie review because we're running out of time here. So, Walt, you always let our listeners in the Wilder Ride Listeners Lounge pick from a selection of horrible movies and force you to watch one of them and provide your review. Which one are we doing this week?
God, what is this? Stop it! I didn't get me out of this hell!
Well, Alan, I had some high hopes this week that were shattered, really. This week was Sharktopus versus Whale Wolf.
I didn't even vote on this one.
No, I'm going to go do Daddy Duty.
Okay.
This is very similar to Daddy Duty.
Well, what's funny is we're doing movie duty because this is a pile of duty while you do your duty.
This is 85 minutes of a cinematic diaper change. And again, let me just remind y'all that you voted for a movie called Sharktopus versus Whale Wolf. You should be ashamed of yourselves. Now, here's the part that I really kind of had high hopes. Alan, do you remember an actor by the name of Casper Van Diem?
Van Diem, yes, he was in Starship Troopers. That was supposed to be his huge launch vehicle into stardom, and he never really did anything much after.
Well, no, he did. He did Sharktopus versus Whale Wolf. He is the lead actor in this piece of shit. No! And I hate him.
I'm gonna need my inhaler with this one.
This movie is absolute trash, but he is actually acting in it.
Oh, really?
This
is my comeback role.
Yeah, there are a couple parts he's like, well, this didn't really turn out well. But he really gave it a shot. And to think about this, he was the lead guy in Starship Troopers. He played Tarzan in Tarzan and the Lost City, and then he is in this. And he plays Ray Brady. He actually gets a full name in this. Other people don't. They get things like widow and bar victim. Okay, so IMDb sums this up with this. When a mad scientist mixes the genes of a killer whale and a wolf, it creates the whale wolf. And it's up to Sharktopus to stop it. That is not accurate.
You know what? This is a theme. I swear to God, these movies are so bad. You've had this as a comment in like the last 5. You say, that's what IMDb says is the plot. But that's not what I watched.
That is not the plot. And I can tell you, though there was a time I actually got up from the movie and went in and started washing dishes. And I was like, oh, crap, I'm actually supposed to watch this. And I had to come back and rewind.
Okay, folks, the fact that Walt stopped to go wash dishes should give you an indication of just how bad it is.
Movie. I let the movie keep playing, and then I had to rewind.
What could I do that's more entertaining than watching this? Oh, yeah, the sink's full of dishes.
And then somebody at Amazon Prime was like, somebody rewound this to make sure they didn't miss anything? What the hell's going on here?
What algorithm have you unleashed on the public?
So no spoilers here, but there was a plot, a subplot, and a subplot that they almost made sense. I mean, like they almost tied them together. They were so close. And I don't know if it was in editing or, they lost something or whatever, but somehow they just didn't all get tied together quite right. One of the problems with this movie is you could tell that when they were filming, they didn't like close off the streets or anything. So they're like driving along and people are looking at them like, why is there a camera out here? And the plot of the movie is like Sharktopus is attacking all these people on the street, but they're then just like people walking in and out of stores.
So, nobody's really participating in the shoot.
Oh, yeah, right. I mean, they, and I guess it was before Whale Wolf got there, so they weren't totally frightened by Sharktopus. And by the way, the CGI in this is absolutely terrible. And Kevin O'Neill, who is the director of this, should be shot because Kevin O'Neill was the visual effects director for Bram Stoker's Dracula. He was the visual effects director.
Bram Stoker was the X-rated version. Bram Stoker might be the other movie.
I'm sorry, Stoker. I'm so proclipped by this piece of shit movie that I'm not getting this right.
Hey, baby, come over to my castle. I'm Bram Stoker.
Yeah.
Totally different movie.
Okay, Bram Stoker's Dracula. And he also did the movie Dino Croc as the visual effects guy. And it looks like my child's 5-year-old drawing from kindergarten for the creatures here. I mean, this is just awful. And this is Kevin O'Neill's only outing as a director, I believe. So, like in 2015, they had technology. They had something more than like paste on to the film strip here. So you've got terrible CGI. You've got 3 plots that are going in different directions. You got IMDb that's half-assing their description of it. You've got people walking down the street kind of paying attention to this film being shot in Puerto Rico. Everybody looks confused through the whole thing, including the people watching it, because you're sitting there like, what did I just see? Then there's one scene, the first real impactful scene where Sharktopus and Whale Wolf are about to go at it. All the extras run the wrong direction. So I guess they like gave them direction and said, hey, run over here. Well, that ended up being where Whale Wolf was. And they basically kind of run through Whale Wolf.
Through the CGI effects?
Through the CGI.
Well, it wasn't there when they were running at the time.
Yeah, I mean,
somebody didn't think to say, put a big blob in the way so they can act like they have to move around an object.
Right, or say, Whale Wolf is going to be right here. Don't run towards him. But I guess at that point, they probably just didn't care. I mean, they're like, nobody's going to watch this anyway. We're getting paid. So then you have these other actors in it who have also been in other stuff. That I'm sure that they were just wondering, what did I get myself into?
I heard Casper Van Dien was going to be in this.
Right, like this is going to be the comeback for the Stormtroopers guy. Well, no, that has not worked out for any of them. And I mean, this movie is like, there's not even really a word for how horrible this is. It's boring. It's dumb. It's bad CGI. Like everything you want in a movie, this movie doesn't have. It doesn't have good effects. It doesn't have good writing. It doesn't have good acting. It terrible directing. I mean, even the clip art's awful. The only good thing about this movie is the The advertising for it was really, really good. Like the art for the poster was awesome, but anything else was absolute garbage. Even for a bad movie, this is terrible. Do not see Sharktopus versus Whale Wolf. You will thank me for the warning.
All right. Well, that was a fantastic review. I appreciate that. And we thank all of our wonderful. So for all you folks in the Wilder Ride listeners group, we appreciate you voting in that poll. If you're not part of the poll, every week when a new episode drops, Walt puts the next survey out there of what movies he's willing to go watch. You have to vote, and the winner, he gets to watch. So join our listeners group by going to the Facebook page, The Wilder Ride on Facebook, and then click the Join Group button. Fill out the questions. We'll remind you at the end, but that's how you can help participate in what movie we're going to use. All right. Time for us to move to the news. We always like to find news that's worthy of the Wilder Ride treatment. It's a segment we like to call
It's no bullshit.
Well, and this is not. You're correct. It is not. This comes from Tampa, Florida, surprisingly. Alan, have you ever really just left a job and wanted to leave a mark?
Leave a mark, like on the door?
Or
on
whatever.
the floor?
Just be memorable. Well, a Florida woman has pleaded guilty to mailing threatening letters containing white powder to elementary schools where she previously worked as a teacher.
I think that would be extraordinarily dangerous.
Oh, I heard about this. Oh my God. Yeah, she's one you want teaching your children.
Yeah, there's a lot in here. Maria LaRuo, 66, of Davenport, Florida.
First, let me just say, someone of an age who should know better.
No doubt about it. I mean, I'm not 66 and I know better. She faces up to 15 years in prison after pleading guilty Thursday in Tampa federal court to 3 counts of making hoaxes that appeared to involve a biological agent or toxin, according to court records.
It's all part of the plan.
In August and September of 2018, Lauro sent threatening mailings to employees at 4 Central Florida elementary schools where she had previously worked as a teacher. The prosecutor said all 4 contained a suspicious powder, and 3, including notes indicating they were punishment, officials said. Tests later showed it was just baking soda. Laura has effectively been fired for poor performance from each of the schools. Now, how does she keep getting teaching jobs? She's been fired from 4 schools. And
I'm going to try to avoid my comment on that profession in general, but there may be part of my answer. They keep hiring them.
Whoever's hiring them is not paying attention. Each victim who received a note had played a role in her performance reviews or tests or terminations, officials said. She admitted in her plea agreement that she had sent the mailings because she was upset and wanted the victims to believe they had been exposed to deadly biological toxins.
It's no bullshit.
Wow. That I heard that in the news, like that was going around the at least the Georgia news, but I think it was even in the nationwide news about this person who thought, hey, I've got an idea. I'm going to get back at people, and I'm going to use the Postal Service to mail what I think is a biological agent. That can't possibly backfire.
We at the Wilder Ride would tell you that is not a good idea.
Even for us, we wouldn't try that. So we do not recommend you try that at home.
Do not do that.
All right. Well, I've got a story for you. We're going to switch it the other way. This may be something right up your alley. I don't know. It'd be kind of cool because, I mean, once you're gone, you're gone. Do you care? Maine, the state of Maine, is considering legalizing Viking funerals.
Awesome.
Check this out. Have you ever wanted to go out in a blaze of glory?
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Well, better move to Maine. A new bill submitted to the Maine State Legislature's Health and Human Services Committee would legalize open-air funeral pyres. How cool is that? We can live out all of our fantasy movies or Darth Vader at the end of Return of the Jedi. In other words, this is the closest you can get to what would be considered, in terms of history, a Viking funeral. Well, the picture of the legendary Viking funeral practice has been synonymous with literally going out in that blaze of glory. There's just something about having your earthly remains disposed of by setting them off in either a burning boat or on a pyre. I mean, how cool would it be to be on a burning pyre at sea?
Totally awesome.
The funeral pyre keeps popping up in cultural media as well. If you've been watching Game of Thrones or rewatching at this point, the series Vikings, or heck, even the Phantom Menace, you've seen great warriors and chieftains depart the world with a fiery send-off. Funeral pyres are still commonly used, especially for high-ranking individuals in the Far East. Now, should the bill pass, nonprofit corporations in Maine would be allowed to conduct open-air cremations if they meet certain caveats. To begin with, the cremation needs to be conducted on a property that has at least 20 acres in size and that the corporation actually owns. Sad they have to say that. You can't just go on some random property and say, all right, set up the funeral pyre, we're burning a body today. Additionally, only, and this is, I think, important because, you got to keep in mind the amount of smoke that's going on, only one funeral pyre should be lit at a time. The ashes of the honored dead could then be scattered either on the funeral property or anywhere else where law allows.
It's no bullshit.
So there you go. You want a Viking funeral? You want to be burned on a pyre? You want to reenact the last scenes of Lord of the Rings or any of your favorite fantasy films? Move to Maine.
You know what's ironic here, Alan, is I just had this conversation with a friend of mine, and he was saying, hey, when I die, I want you to do this. I was like, oh, no, when you die, Viking funeral. By the time it was over, I had him convinced. So,
does it matter to you? You're gone.
Yeah, I'm going to have to pass that along to Bill. He will definitely appreciate that. So, all right, well, I've got the next one. And, life is interesting, but this one really kind of takes us on a fun ride. The headline is, and this comes from the metro.co.uk, man looks up neighbor's property on Zoopla, which is one of those, it's their equivalent of one of our home buying sites, and finds his cat has been living a double life next door. God knows where our cats go on their jaunts, but one man knows exactly where his cat went because the photos were up on Zoopla.
Do you mind telling me what this is all about, mister?
Michael Hubrick, who's a doctor, who heads up the clinical genomics at the Royal Marston Hospital, found out his cat has had a secret life next door. When Michael went to check his neighbor Ronnie's property on the estate company's website, he was stunned to see something in the bedroom, his beloved pet Freddy. The naughty cat was captured having a lie-in on the neighbor's bed. Michael thought Freddy had frequented Ronnie's place every once in a while, but didn't realize how comfortable the kitty was in the neighbor's house. When he shared it on Twitter, people couldn't get enough, and it seemed many have had an experience with their pets that is similar to this one. Michael explained to metro.co.uk, we found him on Zoopla because Ronnie told us they were putting their place up on the market. So my wife had a look at Zoopla, as you do, and there he was. The cheeky little so-and-so. I think Zoopla had changed the picture since then, which is a pity. We knew Freddie goes to Ronnie's house, but we thought it was just for a fuss and an odd saucer of milk. But just look at the little so-and-so. It looks like he owns the place. It's not just Ronnie's place that Freddie has been comfortable with. He is well known down the street, says Michael, often known by different names. Apparently, one neighbor calls him Tibby, another Leo. He's shameless. The virtual fame has also been an interesting experience for Michael. It's been funny. I'm trying to work as I run the cancer testing lab at the Royal Marston in Sutton and have things to prepare for tomorrow. And it's been hard to concentrate because my phone's going berserk. So here's a guy trying to treat cancer, but everybody's bothering him about his cat. The threads have been really nice, though. It seems half the country has a story about unfaithful cats to share and has sent them along for us to enjoy. I tweeted it because I was gobsmacked how comfortable the cat looked. Then I went for a cycle ride, and I got home, and my daughter called and said the story has gone viral. Strange day.
It's no bullshit.
Might as well just call him Don Juan Felicity.
Exactly.
He thinks he's all that in a cup of cheese. All right. I've got the last news story. This one, I think headline tells it all. San Francisco poop testing company charged with fraud.
This really pisses me off.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, imagine swabbing your butt only to find out the procedure was for nothing. Well, at the very least, we'd be upset. You might think your poop is nothing but a waste product, but you'd be wrong. It can actually hold valuable information about your health. That's why many companies provide different kinds of services to analyze your bodily waste. But for one such company, their test material, well, let's just say it hit the fan. On March 18th, the Federal Securities and Exchange Commission charged San Francisco-based Ubiome with massive investor and insurance fraud. The company, founded in 2012, provided services that they claimed accurately analyzes a customer's intestinal microbiome. Except that they didn't. According to the SEC, the company's tests were nothing but bullshit. Well, we can say it. Bullshit. According to the SEC, Ubiome's founders Jessica Richmond, age 46, and Zachary Schultz Apt, age 36, collected more than $60 million from investors based on bogus claims about their company. They presented their firm as a successful startup with a proven business model, said the SEC. Ooh. Richmond and Apt portrayed the company as having a strong track record of receiving health insurance reimbursement for its clinical tests, which purportedly could detect microorganisms and assist in diagnosing disease. These claims were false and misleading because Ubiome's purported success in generating revenue depended on duping doctors into ordering unnecessary tests and other improper practices.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they were making money by getting doctors to swab people's butts for nothing.
It's amazing. It's astounding. But it's no bullshit.
And I was reading further. It was basically your typical pyramid scam. While they would send the doctor some fake tests, or fake results, which would require additional tests, they would turn around and bill the insurance company for the knowledge of those tests. They would charge the customer $100 to get the test done at the doctor's office, then charge the insurance company $3,000 to run the swab, and saying that's how much they charged for the customer to run that test. So they were basically double and triple dipping, not providing any useful information whatsoever, trying to always stay one step ahead, bilking $60 million before getting caught.
Wow. Those people are garbage.
Yeah, they are. But you know what? That's why when people go, hey, I trust the science. Okay, well, that company was purported to be involved in science since 2012. They were full of shit. No pun intended.
Trust the science fiction when in the X-Files they say trust no one.
Yeah, the trust no one. Or in this case, it was science fantasy.
That's pretty scary.
All right. Well, as we wind down, we always get to our last segment. We've got to talk about our entertainment section. Let's dive into what we're watching, what we're listening to, and what we're reading. Walt, what do you got on the watching category?
I'm just going to recommend one thing. I stumbled across an app called Tubi, Tubi, and there is a great show on there. I can't remember how many episodes it is, but it's called The Fighting Season. And you remember Ricky Schroeder, the childhood actor?
Yeah. Silver Spoons.
Ricky was crazy enough to take a camera and go to Iraq or Afghanistan with some of our troops and document their life in combat.
Wow.
So he has an up close and personal, he is right with these guys while they're under fire, while they're planning missions, the whole 9 yards. And if you want to know what it's like to be one of our troops, this is the way to find it.
It was good, huh?
It's called it's awesome. I sat down and watched the first episode and I could not stop watching. It is just amazing. And I don't care where you stand politically on the war or whatever. When you watch this, you have a great appreciation for what our men and women are doing when they get sent to war.
And it probably will tick you off when you see politicians who think they understand what it's like to be on the front lines trying to dictate policy. That will forever drive me insane.
Well, when we put our troops in a place where they're getting chewed up and spit out for no reason, it's sickening. And and when we fight these wars that go 20 plus years, and you hear the comments from the troops, they say, we are here to end this, because we can't send another generation of kids to fight this war. We have to stop it now. So it's great. Again, it's called The Fighting Season. Ricky Schroeder Productions and a couple other companies, and you can find it for free on the Tubi app. And there is an app I'll recommend real quick that everybody get. And you can look up basically anything that's ever been made, and it will tell you where it's streaming. It's called the Just Watch app. And I think that's where I found this.
All right. Is that all you got for watching for your
That's all I
this
got
past
this
week?
week.
All right. Well, I have two things I definitely want to bring up right off the bat, because I have been rewatching the Star Trek original series, the remastered version. I've been trying to watch a little bit every couple of nights. I'll watch 1 or 2 episodes. The two that I watched in this past week, since the last time we recorded, the first one was Space Seed, which was the story
Great
with
episode.
Ricardo Montalban. That was the genesis, no pun intended, actually maybe pun intended, that actually ended up becoming the storyline that was being used by Harve Bennett to then turn around and go forward into the Star Trek cast movies, Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. It was the original story with Khan, where they found this race of genetically superior altered human beings that we find out through the course of the episode had tried to basically take over the world. And at the last minute, when they realized the world was rebelling against them, they had no choice but to put themselves into stasis and fly to a planet unknown, hope to recolonize somewhere in the future. Really, really cool to see a young Ricardo Montalban. It's really tough seeing the way they shot TV in 1966 for the first season of Star Trek. Maybe because it's remastered and the visual quality is so much better. The fist fight between Khan and Kirk becomes, wait a minute, now it's 2 stunt guys. Now it's Khan and Kirk. Now it's 2 stunt guys. Now it's Khan and Kirk. It's so bad in terms of the body swapping, but in terms of the performance, I almost wanted to just say, okay, time to pull out Wrath of Khan and just go watch that next. Ricardo Montalban did a fantastic job. And then the most recent episode I finished up before getting ready to record, I watched this yesterday. I'm almost done with season 1. It's the first introduction of the Klingons. This was before the makeup of the head and everything. It was called Errand of Mercy. And I totally forgot about who was in it, who played the Klingons. The lead Klingon's name is Kor. He was played by John Colicos. Now, I thought, well, how do I know that name? I don't know that name. But you might, if you remember the original Battlestar Galactica, he played Baltar. And I texted BK, our good buddy who has his own nostalgic geeky radio show, and I said, I swear to God, if this guy in Klingon says, by your command, I'm going to just shit a brick right now. I'm telling you, it was awesome. I mean, I know the Klingons evolved makeup-wise, but this performance by John Colicos was so good. I loved it. The only problem I had with the episode is the whole subplot was they were on a planet. They were both races, the humans and then, well, actually the Federation and the Klingon Empire both wanted this planet for a strategic base. And there was a race of beings that you come to find out by the end are basically have evolved beyond flesh. They are now all, in fact, it's where the song that samples Spock's voice, Pure Energy. That's where it comes from, because he says they have evolved into pure energy. So the only thing I had a problem with it is they acted as though they were going to stop all conflict ever between the Klingon Empire and the Federation, because they said, I am sitting on your worlds right now, and any instrument of war is too hot to touch. And I thought, well, okay, I want to know how they're going to fix this, because we obviously know there's going to be a war between the Klingons and the humans, and if they are these all-powerful, benevolent beings, why did they let all of the other wars and all of the other battles happen if they were going to stop the Klingons and the humans from fighting? I get it. At the time, they were writing just a single episode, had no idea. I think by that point, they thought, no one's renewing Star Trek. Whatever, we'll see. But
right.
At that point, it was such a good performance. It was so much fun to listen to. And I will tell you, Walt, I just stopped in time because I was getting a little sleepy. I would have watched one more, but I'm going to be watching, so I'll talk about it next week. The City on the Edge of Forever is the next episode for me to watch.
That is my favorite episode.
I'm looking forward to it.
That is my favorite Star Trek episode. Space Seed is right behind it. But that is my favorite Star Trek episode.
Now, look, I'm going to say this for anybody who's never gone back to watch the original Trek. It's both on Netflix, and I guess Amazon Prime has the remastered series. Don't get hung up, which it's hard to, in the filming techniques of a television show in 1966, or even the style of acting, which was still a little bit melodramatic. It's sort of like the Twilight Zone episodes, if you go back and watch them. Watch them for the story, for what's being told. It's amazing, the depth of some of these stories that I think, I was telling BK, our good buddy, some of these characters and some of these plot lines, I think were an emphasis. It was the what was it? The inspiration for some of the next generation stories. There was one story with this all ability race that could just snap their fingers and make things happen. I'm like, oh, that's going to be the Q. It's just better fleshed out and more evolved. There were other stories that I saw about whether or not, beings could be made of different things and how do you judge intelligence. And I thought, wow, this was all taking place in the 60s, well before the Next Generation or any of these other series that would spawn later. So it's well worth going back and watching it.
Well, and then if you go back and watch Enterprise, you can see how they took some of the stuff from the later shows and kind of pulled it back and did a "Where did this come from?" episode.
I'm looking forward to that. I've heard good things about Enterprise, at least initially. I'm going to have to wait and see. I know you already kind of gave me your review of not Deep Space Nine, but Voyager, that it was okay for the first few seasons, but that you struggled toward the end. So I'm going to probably hold off on that one.
Yeah. Enterprise is great. You will enjoy Enterprise end to end.
I remember
Voyager has rough parts.
Yeah, you told me the last couple seasons you were struggling. I actually want to go back now and rewatch Deep Space Nine. I watched a lot of Deep Space Nine when it was live, and I remember it won some Emmys for some of its television stories. So I thought the concept was cool. I know some of the characters are good. So I'm basically reacquainting myself with my Trek lore.
Yeah, I need to go back and watch Deep Space Nine. I watched a few episodes here and there when it was on, but never really watched it end to end. I
do remember it was like the first season of Next Generation. It was trying to figure out what it was in the first season, but it really took off from there. And I thought the ensemble mode was really, really cool. I just remember loving it when it first aired. So I'm looking forward to going back and watching that next.
Good. Yeah, I need to do that too.
All right, let's move on to what you're reading.
I've had a lot on my plate these last couple of weeks, so I'm slowly getting through Running with the Devil, the story about Van Halen. So I will keep y'all in the loop, but it is good. It's a good read. I just need to actually sit down and have time to read. I'm going home to work a couple more hours tonight, so I just need to get some reading time under my belt. But great book. Check it out. It's definitely worth the read if you are a fan of rock music, rock history, or Van Halen.
Cool. All right. I have done, I don't know if this counts, but it is kind of reading because it was preparation for the Marriage Fit podcast that I did with my wife, who wanted to do a show this year. Started off at the beginning of the year, a marriage sort of couples and blended family and kids and all the blah, blah, blah kind of stuff that we talk about. And it's kind of fun. But I decided I needed to do some research to get ready for a new episode. And I stumbled across a blog that I thought was really neat. A couple of years ago, the blog is actually called Crated with Love. And the blog post was the 25 best conversation starters for married couples. And it was kind of neat because it comes at it from a perspective of if you're just sitting there and you don't really know what to talk about, but you just miss talking or you want to try to get a conversation going, it was really neat to just look at, here are some suggestions for what to do to start a conversation. For example, if you could spend 24 hours doing anything in the world together, what would it be? Kind of neat to just be able to sit back, maybe with a glass of wine, if the kids are in bed, or if you're like us, where we're empty nesters, you can just have that kind of conversation. Or if you could live in any other time period, which would you choose and why? And so these are just kind of neat. It was just, it wasn't a heavy reading. It was just sort of research for a show we're getting ready to do. And I thought it was kind of neat. Just some conversation starters for couples.
That's great.
So that's it. That's all I've got. Let's go on. Oh, good.
I was just going to say one thing about that, and that is I heard earlier this week that one of the hardest things for couples to do is to become empty nesters. and look across the table at each other and go, wait, who are you? So that's probably a great suggestion for empty nesters.
You know what? And that's the whole reason we started the podcast, The Marriage Fit, because my wife is like, are we still cool together? I mean, for so long, we were so-and-so's mom, so-and-so's dad. We were taking him to soccer, taking him to track, taking him to gymnastics. We were the ones who were shuffling him to chorus and concerts and after school, and all of a sudden they're gone. It's like, okay, so now what do we do?
Yeah.
And it's tough. I get it now. I see why some people, you go, how did you get divorced after 30 years? Well, the kids were gone. I get it. I totally get it. And
it happens.
Thankfully, my wife was smart enough to say, let's make a point of talking about some of the things we still love about each other, which was kind of cool. Yeah. So anyways, we have a lot of fun with that. We're not psychologists. We're not clinicians. We're not even affiliated with the church. We're not going to tell you about, biblically what it says. We may hit things just randomly. We are coming at it from just two regular, ordinary people.
Well, good. With a regular, ordinary mess.
We are a mess. We are a burning dumpster fire, but we have so much fun, and we'll stay warm that way.
Admitting it is the first step towards recovery.
Hey, as long as I can say the word functioning in any of my titles, I'm okay.
There you go.
All right, let's move to listening. What are you listening to?
I'm just going to plug a couple things real quick. Radio Labyrinth, our good friends over there, Tim Andrews and Jeff and all those guys, week after week, just a great show. They always have fantastic recommendations for stuff to watch and listen to, and I never have enough time to get through it all. But they have great guests and just a really good break from the craziness of life. All three of the main folks on there are just hilarious, and I enjoy it every single week when I listen to Radio Labyrinth. So check that out. And Tim will be coming up in a few weeks here, 2 or 3 weeks. He'll be joining us on the show again. He was with us last season. I think he'll be the first repeat guest.
He's going to be our first recurring guest. Well, the last time he was really wiped out and tired, but he had committed to us and said, look, we put it off a couple of times. I'm going to meet with you guys. We're going to do it. And I think he was really jonesing to come back because there's so much more we could have talked about.
Well, and I was going to say, from the standpoint of all the things that Tim has done, we could talk to him for weeks. So I'm looking forward to hearing from him again. And he's about to be a dad for the first time. So
yeah, that's what I want to talk about, because here I am. Tim and I are, I think, 2 days apart in terms of birthdays. I think he was November 16. I'm November 18. It's that close. So he just turned 50 last year. I just turned 50. I'm saying adios to the last one. He's saying, hey, how's it going? I'm going to raise an infant. I'm thinking, dear Lord, do you have any idea what you're in for?
Yes.
You better have some live-in relatives. You better start looking for the au pair and the nanny, and you're going to need some help, bud, because you think you're having a hard time with sleep when you've got just the two of you? Wait till you have an infant.
He has no idea what train is on that track.
I just want to be a fly on the wall and watch.
Yes.
It's going to be fun. Can't wait to have Tim on. It's going to be great.
Well, it's good being friends with him because we'll be able to and sit in the sidelines and enjoy.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think he understands. He has people he'll be able to reach out to and go, okay, what do I do? I don't even know. Is this normal? Should the child do this in the middle of, like, should he just throw up like projectile vomit from the back seat to the front seat? Is that normal?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, there's not a lot of, there's like 4 inches from the stomach to their mouth. So basically when it just comes straight out.
Hey, if
like a squeeze toy.
Your child throws up 14 gallons of Valentine's candy on the floor of Sweet Tomato, is that normal? No, but my child did that.
Yeah.
So yes, sure. Yeah. Why not? That's normal.
We can cover a subject like I can cover this one. Like, how do you get the soured smell of an entire bowl of Lucky Charms thrown up in a car seat just as you arrive at daycare? I got into the parking spot, opened the back door. I was like, hey, all of a sudden here, I'm like, I guess we're not going into daycare today.
Yes.
And of course they always want to cry. And my first thing is like, no, it's okay. It's okay. I don't, it's a natural thing.
All good.
I just don't know what to do now because you smell like sour milk.
Yes.
Oh, you and I could do an entire episode of just the horrific things children put us through.
I'm just gonna tell one more story. we were on vacation at a condo my parents used to own, and a lady knocks on the door. It's like 7:30 in the morning, and she says, "Excuse me, but your baby's outside naked." Heather was about 4. She escaped.
I didn't even have to ask. This is Heather, right?
This is Heather. She escaped. She's sitting on the air conditioning unit, butt naked, just watching people go by.
Feeling the air.
And I'm like, and as soon as there was a knock at the door, I was like, what did Heather do now? And sure enough, I mean, she got outside, shed her clothes, just free as the wind. And
oh my gosh. We should do that. Maybe we'll have an episode where it's just you and I. We're going to go back and just kid stories.
I thought you meant run around outside naked. Alan, it's a whole different ball game when you're our age.
No, what did somebody tell me? One of the financial advisors I used to have as a show host, he said, when we were young, we always used to call it skinny dipping. Now we've come to the realization it's chunkin' dunkin'.
Yes, it is.
So,
it is.
All right.
One other thing I want to plug real quick.
Sure.
Pete Davis has a great
I didn't even
podcast.
get to what I'm listening to. So you go ahead.
Oh, yeah, I'm
go
sorry.
ahead.
Go ahead.
No. What are you listening to? Is that
Pete Davis has a great podcast called Holy Crap It's Sports. And Pete's an old Atlanta, not old. I mean, he's like my age. Well, he's old. Atlanta sportscaster, great guy, and has just a really entertaining show. He has the depths of the sporting world. And again, that's Holy Crap It's Sports. You can find it on any podcatcher.
We got to get Pete Davis, put an invite out to him. Why don't you I'll let you take charge of that
tonight.
That'd be awesome. I think it'd be cool to have him on. I used to listen to him on WGST. He had a night talk show for a little while, and I thought that was always cool. All right, the two I've got that I'm listening to, super, super easy. One, I just decided to see if my Alexa speaker, because we pay for the Amazon extra music service to have access to all the music library, not just the base library. And I've been just re-listening to the Queen's Gambit soundtrack. I talked about the Queen's Gambit limited series on Netflix, which is just awesome. The music is phenomenal. So I've been kind of playing that while I've been doing stuff in around the house. Well worth listening to. And I got to do a plug for our podcast, the Marriage Fit podcast, the most recent episode that dropped at the time of this recording. Susan and I went through our different love languages. We did the quiz blindly. She went in one room, I did the other room, and then we immediately came in and started recording to see what our love languages were. We kind of had done that before 4 or 5 years ago, and come to find out we're exactly where we were and have the exact same miscommunication as a result of what she thinks means love and what I think means love. So it was a good time to have to look at that. And so check that out, the Marriage Fit podcast.
Awesome.
Well, why don't you take us through how people can learn more about us?
If you still have listened to this and want to learn more about us, you can go over to our website, thewilderride.com. On there, you can find anything you want. You can find our old episodes, our links to our social media. If for some crazy reason you want to find out who Alan and I are, you can find our bios on there. And I think I may have mentioned this, a list of all of our past guests. If you are wanting to get involved and engage a little bit too, you want to go over to Facebook, facebook.com/thewilderride, click the button to follow us there, and then click the button to join our listeners group. Answer the 3 quick questions that come up so we know you're not a bot. And it is a politics-free, nonsense-free opportunity just to join us. And you can also vote weekly for what horrible piece of garbage movie I get to watch.
I think that has been one of the greatest things that you have brought to the show this season 4. A great update. Bring Out Your Dead was fun in season 3. This is turning out to be comedy gold. Thank you. And the fact that you get tortured is even better.
I'm suffering for art.
Yes. You're suffering. I don't know if it's for art. You're definitely suffering.
I'm suffering, but it's fun. I'm enjoying it. So.
As always, folks, take a second to rate and review if you got time. And if you don't have time to do that, at least take the moment to share the episode. If you're listening right now on your podcatcher of choice, almost all of them have a little 3-button drop down to the little hamburger or something that allows you to pick the option to share, copy the link, put it on your social media, help us out, spread the word, let other people learn about us. We would really appreciate it. And come on back next week. We've got another fantastic episode lined up for you. It's a weekly show here, the Wilder Ride Listeners Lounge. Now, don't forget, we told you in the opening, we're going to be working on a Gene Wilder movie that will be sort of in tandem with our weekly guests. But I can tell you, next week, we are expecting a fellow podcaster, but also a photographer Curtis Blaze is scheduled to join us. We're going to talk to him about getting into podcasting, his role in photography, some of the other stuff in his background, and have just the same kind of fun that we have every single week. And we hope you'll come on back next week, same time, right here on the Wilder Ride Listeners Lounge. So, you ready to go do a Savoy and see if we can crash some cars?
I want to see the tree car.
I didn't even ask about food. I mean, have you seen Tom? I mean, there's not he doesn't skip any meals, so I'm hoping there's going to be some good food. You know, I want to make sure the cafe's stocked. You know,
I have a feeling it'll be a good cafe.
You know, some good barbecue, maybe some hot dogs, burgers. Got to have like that sort of automotive go to a car show food.
Absolutely.
I don't want
hot
snails.
dogs.
I'm not looking for escargot or pretty poop. Give me a burger.
Tofu?
Right off your